Janet hated her life as a typist. The pay was so poor she could barely afford new shoes, and the daily bus ride home felt like torture. She dreamed of a boyfriend with a fast car and money to spare. Michael, the taxi driver, was kind and handsome, but a taxi was still just a taxi. Then she met someone else, someone with power and wealth, someone who could change everything. The only problem was her older sister Caitlin, who would never approve. One evening, Janet came home wearing beautiful new black shoes. Caitlin noticed them immediately and felt uneasy. Just last week, Janet had complained about having no money. How could she afford expensive shoes now? Caitlin worried but said nothing at first. She was 7 years older than Janet, married to Oliver, and pregnant with her second child. She felt responsible for her younger sister, especially since their parents had passed away. Later that evening, the sisters talked in the kitchen. Janet mentioned she was going to see a film. When Caitlin asked who she was going with, Janet hesitated before finally admitting the truth. She was seeing Graham White, the politician. Caitlin's heart sank. Graham White was old enough to be Janet's father and had a reputation for having many wives and girlfriends. Caitlin tried to reason with her sister, reminding her that she had wanted a man of her own, not someone who belonged to so many women already. But Janet stormed off to get ready, angry and defensive. When Graham White arrived in his expensive government car, Janet climbed in and they drove away. She told him that Caitlin knew about their relationship. He was annoyed at first, but quickly offered a solution. He promised to buy Caitlin an electric motor for her sewing machine during his upcoming trip to London. He also told Janet he had arranged a government house for her to live in. Janet felt relieved and grateful, pushing away her earlier doubts. Back home, Caitlin cried to Oliver about Janet's affair. Oliver was practical and somewhat cynical. He pointed out that many young women did the same thing to survive and get ahead. He even suggested that Graham White might help them get a new car or secure Caitlin's job after the baby was born. Caitlin felt conflicted, but eventually accepted the sewing machine motor when Janet brought it to her. She chose silence over confrontation, hoping things would somehow work out. For a brief time, everything seemed to be falling into place. Oliver dreamed of his new car, Janet enjoyed her comfortable new life, and Caitlin tried to convince herself that everything would be fine. Then the coup happened. The military overthrew the government and arrested politicians like Graham White. Everything changed overnight. Janet quickly left the government house before she could be thrown out. Oliver never got his car. Caitlin, who had just given birth to her new baby, felt strangely relieved. She believed God had intervened to save her sister from ruin before the affair became a public scandal. She hoped Janet would return home, find an ordinary man, get married, and leave this dark chapter behind. Days passed and Janet stayed away. Caitlin grew worried, especially when Janet mentioned staying with a friend, but refused to say who. Oliver told Caitlin to stop worrying, insisting that Janet could take care of herself. Then, one evening, Janet arrived at the house, cheerful and smiling, more confident than ever. She greeted them warmly and played with the baby before making an announcement. She had brought a friend to meet them, a man. Caitlin and Oliver exchanged nervous glances. Janet went outside and returned with Captain George, a high-ranking army officer who had just been appointed to an important government position. Oliver remembered seeing his picture in the newspaper at his daughter's wedding, surrounded by his wife, children, and grandchildren. Caitlin sat frozen, her mouth open in shock. Her sister had not learned anything at all. Janet had simply traded one powerful older man for another, moving from a disgraced politician to a celebrated military officer. The cycle was starting all over again, and there was nothing Caitlin could do to stop it. As Janet smiled brightly, introducing her new protector, Caitlin realized with a deep, painful certainty that her little sister was lost to her. Choosing survival and comfort over dignity, choosing powerful men over her own freedom. Again and again, without ever looking back.